Life is like this big tapestry. And when we're going through life, so much of it is we're in the back of the tapestry, and all we see is threads hanging out. We see a little bit of a rough design, but it doesn't look like a whole lot. But when you turn it over, there's this beautiful picture. And that's when you're kind of saying, oh, this makes sense now.
Welcome to the Experience Jesus Calling podcast. Today, we speak with Marty Roe, the lead singer of Diamond Rio, a Grammy Award-winning country music group, and JT Olson, the founder and executive director of Both Hands Foundation, an author of the book about his life and his ministry entitled The Orphan, the Widow, and Me. These two longtime friends share the story of how God led them to start a ministry that is bringing help and hope to both orphans and widows.
Hey, I'm Marty Roe, and I'm the lead singer of Diamond Rio. I was born in a church house, pretty much. I mean, I was about a week old the first Sunday I ever attended church. And I grew up in a Church of Christ in southern Cincinnati. And like I said, growing up on a farm, a lot of farmers. My dad was a teacher, but we also farmed. Like most teachers, he had more than one job. There never was a time that God was not the major part of our life growing up.
And I'm JT Olson. I'm the executive director of Both Hands Foundation and the author of a new book called The Orphan, the Widow, and Me. I was raised on a farm in northeastern Iowa, and there's 5 kids in our family, and it's really beautiful. It's a beautiful part of the country, and had a great childhood growing up there on a farm. March of 1969, and I remember I'd spent the whole day playing in my buddy's barn, so I was pretty dirty. And I went down to the basement to take my boots off, and I remember sitting on this chair and unlacing my boots, and my oldest brother came down the basement stairs. I looked up at him and I said, "Are Mom and Dad home?" I was excited to see Mom and Dad. They had left to go celebrate their 16th wedding anniversary. And us 5 kids were kind of farmed out to different places. And Saturday came along, and they were coming home, and we were being brought home. And he just looked at me, and he said, "Mom and Dad are dead." And I was shocked. I said, "What?" And he said, "Mom and Dad are dead. They were killed in a car accident an hour ago." And he turned around and went upstairs. And I remember hitting the floor. I remember that cold cement floor and wailing. I think the way any 12-year-old would wail. I mean, when I think about it and I think back on it, that would be referred to as an earth-shattering experience. I mean, that's the only way I can think about it, because everything that you hold dear, everything that's important, the things that keep you tethered, the things that make life make sense, when you're 12, your parents are a big part of that, and it's gone. So, the things that happen to you when you hear the fact your mom and dad are gone, one of the things that goes through your head is what's going to happen to us. Who's going to take care of us? And I know there's a lot of kids in the foster care system who weren't as lucky as I was to have family. We were very fortunate, us 5 kids, because my mom and dad had some foresight, and about 3 months before the accident, they had changed their will. And so that if anything would ever happen to them, my aunt and uncle, my mom's sister and her husband, would take the kids and vice versa. And they lived in a very nice suburb of Milwaukee called Brookfield. And they took all 5 of us in. So they're my heroes.
My first memory of a genuine introduction and kind of a stripped-down moment between JT and I, we bought a house. So we moved in, and the neighbors next door had 4 little kids. And within the first week or two, our 2 small children, one which was basically a year old, I guess Sarah was, just a toddler, they kept running back and forth between the houses, and they basically made a muddy path between the 2 houses. And we hadn't really, we'd met, but we hadn't really had a lot of time together. I grew up on a farm also, so we had a bunch of rocks on our property, and I picked up all these big rocks, and I said, we're going to make a path between our house and their house, and I was edging it out and putting rocks in there and right up into his driveway, and I don't really know where the property line was, but while we were doing that, he comes out, and it just kind of hit me. I went, hey, is it okay that we do this? Our kids are, we've been there 21 years, and we're family. It's been an absolute godsend. We would have never, you could hope for those kind of things as you're raising a family, those kind of close-knit neighborhoods. God was good to me. I travel a lot for a living, and I'm not home. Especially back then, I wasn't home very much, and it was a comforting thought to know that we had an anytime friend right next door. We do Monday night football with the guys and watch Monday night football literally on the back of my house.
The best way to watch football game, I might add. So
it is. We have a lot of fun. But we also get a chance to share some hopes and dreams and things there. And JT was telling us all about this experience. He had left a long career with Southwestern and started his own business. And I was impressed by his passion to really find what he was kind of in his midlife scenario. It's definitely in his work anyway, and was very, very diligent about trying to find how his second half of his life could be more benevolent, a little more focused on God's will, and maybe a little less on his own personal career.
The way it all started was I was on the board of Bethany Christian Services, and my job that year was to do the fundraiser, and I was in charge of that. So I thought we'd do a golf tournament, where you mail letters out to people and say, would you sponsor me while I golf? And I did that, and we got it all going. I sent my letters out like I was supposed to, and I had a buddy who I was in a Bible study with. He sends my letter back to me, and he doesn't send me a check. He just scribbles on my letter. He says, JT, if you told me you were working on a widow's house, I might sponsor you, but you're just golfing. Nice cause, but not my money. I mean, and it hurt my feelings a little bit, but at the same time, I thought, geez, that's a good idea, and I called him a couple days later, and we talked about it and laughed about it. He still didn't give me any money, but the idea just never left me. Whenever I saw a golf tournament or a 5K race or anything like that, I kept thinking, if they were working on a widow's house, would that be more compelling? Well, about 3 years later, I ran into a friend of mine at church. Just hadn't seen him in a couple months. I said, "What's up?" He said, "I'm adopting 4 kids from Moldova." And I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I went over there on a mission to deliver beds to orphanages, fell in love with this 11-year-old boy, started the adoption process, and found out he's got 3 siblings, and we're just not going to break the siblings up." Well, I'm the just right guy to say that to, because, I'm kind of all for keeping siblings together, having been a product of that. And and Don already had 3 kids. So, I asked Don, I said, "How much is this going to cost?" He said, "About $65,000. I said, "Do you know how you're going to raise it?" He said, "No." And I said, "I think I got an idea." So long story short, we got about 13, 14 guys. We all mailed letters out to everyone we knew saying, "Would you sponsor me for the day while I work on this widow's house?" I found a widow in Nashville who needed help, got all the supplies donated. So we didn't spend any money, and we spent the day working on our house. And when it was over, we'd raised over $55,000. And that was the first both hands project. Well, and it was just amazing. I literally felt like I was on hallowed ground because I was expecting maybe 10 or 15,000. But 55,000, I was just blown away. And that started a little bit of my discontentment with my job, because all of a sudden I got a taste of what it was like to do that. And it was just totally different than the particular business I was in, which was recruiting and stuff like that. Had a friend of mine who came up to me after we did Don's project, and he said, "Would you help me with one?" So we did another project. And it was at the end of that project in April of 2008 where it hit me. I thought, this is what I got to do. And about 4 months later, I ended up leaving my company and starting Both Hands officially.
He told me about the project he did with Don and his idea. I saw something that was very marketable, and I basically all I did was just encourage him, and I became a cheerleader on the front end there, just saying, man, this is a spectacular idea. We need to, I think even then I might have said, man, you need to write a book. You need to, get this figured out. And then I got a chance to be, I don't know if it was the second or the third project that we did down in Franklin. Anyway, and we were a part of that, and I wrote letters, and I'm not very good at asking for help. It's been a learning process for me.
He's gotten good at it, though.
But I got involved with that, and I went through the process that he had done, and he'd actually, kind of begun to get a pretty good business model. So anyway, we just a lot of discussion, a lot of cheerleading there on the deck, and hearing the results on the front end was honestly didn't surprise me that much. It excited me, and it confirmed, I think that's what he felt, a confirmation that this is something that God is rewarding this. And so I tried to do my part to support it. And at some point, we became a little more official and needed a board, and he asked me to do that, which is basically just do the same thing I've been doing, and that's try to be a good sounding board and a cheerleader. The very first one that I was a part of, and to watch the transformation of a widow's home in a day's time, and to see the actual, just the impact on her, and the fact that the adoptive family is actually there working on the project too. They're a part of this. They don't just sit back and receive something and do nothing. They are engaged. The widow gets engaged with the adoptive family, and hopefully and historically we've had lots of widows and adoptive families who've developed lasting relationships through that. We have videos of every project we've ever done. We asked them to do that, and it's how many have we done now?
653.
653 projects. And every time I watch a video, I cannot keep from weeping with joy about it. It is emotional because it's just a pure act of kindness. And our theme scripture that God gave JT, James 1:27, the purest form of religion is to minister to widows and orphans. Stories like JT's and the fact that God has placed our family close to one another, I don't believe that that's an accident, that's part of God's taking care of us, giving us an availability, and I think everybody has those. I think my knowledge and awareness of my spirituality and the Lord only allows me to recognize God's footprint in my life. And so it causes me to maybe be a little more readily aware and grateful for it than someone who's not as aware, but he's there. He's chasing us.
JT and Marty have raised over $7.1 million for families to use for adoption, impacting hundreds of orphans who have been able to be placed with loving families. They continue to trust God that He will enable them to do another 150 projects this year alone. JT and Marty seek out God's guidance by reading His Word daily, and they both enjoy the encouragement that Jesus' calling brings to their lives.
My wife and I mentored a group of kids in our Sunday school at church. We called it a lifeguard group, and you took kids from the 7th grade through their senior year of high school. And our neighbor across the road was one of our children, which we'd known him, Ty Jr., and his dad and mother I went to college with, and they also knew them. We conned them into buying a house on our street so we could get our kids together, and we've had it's been a great story. And So Ty Jr. was using this, and he kind of introduced me to it on Sundays. So I got a hold of one, but it became a little more important to me when we lost Ty in a car accident in 2012.
I heard about it too because one of the things that they talked about at Ty's funeral was, what did he read that morning? And he was reading the Jesus Calling book, and it was obvious from some things they found, or I'm not sure, or the discussions he was having with people. And so as a gift, his mom and dad bought a bunch of copies of it and just gave them away to everybody.
I got mine out, and I looked, and I do have some highlighting. One is April 1st, April Fool's Day, of all things. Just one line out of that I highlighted, and it said, a successful day is one in which you have stayed in touch with me. And I can vouch for that, because I have days where I have to get up early and I don't get a chance to do my devotional time. It started out when I as a discipline that, okay, I'm going to spend 15 minutes just in the Word, whatever. I didn't have any other tools helping like Jesus Calling, anything. Just I'm going to open up the Bible and read some Scripture and pray. An hour is not long enough for me most of the time these days. I'm always sad that I have to stop. That's the truth. We all have unique situations that we've come through, and challenges and trials that uniquely equips us to minister to other folks who had that same thing. And JT is just walked that line. If it was some other scenario, he's not equipped for that. But this is what he's been equipped for, and he's stepped in faith for that, and I'm forever grateful and proud to know the guy.
It's funny because whenever I tell the both hands story to a group, for the last 5-6 years, someone always comes up to me at the end and says, "You should write a book." And so we did. The Orphan, the Widow, and Me. And the subtitle is Paying It Forward with Both Hands. We finally got it done, and we've been working on it for a while. And but I just think it's a story that it really can inspire people, because I think there's things that happen to all of us in life that we can use them as an excuse, or we can use them as a stepping stone. We can, they can be an obstacle, or they can be something that's going to help you figure out how to get tougher. And I think so much of it points towards a faith, and that's what the story is about, a faith walk. It's about how God can take something that's hard and painful and turn it into something that's beautiful.
To find out more about Both Hands Ministry and how you can get involved, visit their website at bothhands.org. You can also get JT's book, The Orphan, the Widow, and Me, at bothhandsbook.com. Next time on the Experience Jesus Calling podcast, we speak with Leanne Mancini. Leanne is an author, a speaker, and a Bible teacher who writes stories for kids that help them explore their faith.
What led me to write my first children's Christian book was the fact that when my children were small, I could not find any books that showed characters actually praying to Jesus. We always found books that talked about Jesus. I wanted my kids to see that there was situations in their life, difficulties that they face in school, and that they could actually go to Jesus and pray to him. And I also wanted to instill in them the love and compassion for others, to be like Jesus.
Our featured passage for today's show comes from the April 1st entry of the Jesus Calling audiobook.
I am calling you to a life of constant communion with me. Basic training includes learning to live above your circumstances, even while interacting on that cluttered plane of life. You yearn for a simplified lifestyle, so that your communication with me can be uninterrupted. But I challenge you to relinquish the fantasy of an uncluttered world. Accept each day just as it comes, and find me in the midst of it all. Talk with me about every aspect of your day including your feelings. Remember that your ultimate goal is not to control or fix everything around you. It is to keep communing with me. A successful day is one in which you have stayed in touch with me, even if many things remain undone at the end of the day. Do not let your to-do list, written or mental, become an idol directing your life. Instead, ask my Spirit to guide you moment by moment. He will keep you close to me.
Hear more great stories about the impact Jesus Calling is having all over the world. Be sure to subscribe to the Jesus Calling podcast on iTunes. We value your reviews and comments so we can reach even more people with the message of Jesus Calling. And if you have your own story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Visit JesusCalling.com to share your story today.